Alright, for this feature match, we have a practice breakdown. So this is going to be a different kind of commentary. We have a Sky Striker mirror match. This is actually the early learning phases of the deck, and I'll be breaking down the mentality behind each play, how it feels, and kind of how to read so that we can learn how to play against the Sky Striker deck, or play with the Sky Striker deck. So I am going to be going first in this match, and huge shout outs to my newest Patreons, Eric Christensen and Zataru22. Huge shout outs to you guys. So in this hand, I actually opened pretty badly, opening with 2 Rays, Ogre, and an Ash, and 1 back row. So immediately I go into the Shizuku, hoping that I can get an end phase, add a card to my hand, and hopefully I can add the Engage. So end phase, get ashed. That is the right play. When you see your opponent go into a play like this, I would recommend ashing them as well, especially when they don't have anything to kind of follow up the next turn. But that also means that their hand is full of hand traps, like my current hand. So Jessie proceeds to play multi-roll. And bear in mind that this is actually recorded before the set was actually dropped, so we have actually 2 full proxy decks here. And this is actually what I recommend to you guys if you guys want to practice your matches before they even come out. Then just try out proxies and just grab a friend. I'm pretty sure a lot of more competitive players wouldn't mind playing against your proxies. So he starts off pretty good. He gets a multi-roll. Now multi-roll can actually either help you snowball, but if multi-roll gets countered, it's actually pretty bad. So he's going to go into Hornet Bit, or I guess Hornet Drones. Summons out his drone token. Now placement does matter in this case, because there is infinite impermanence in the decks, and if you don't activate things kind of misaligned to your opponent, you could get unnecessary things negated. So we're going to put a die on the multi-roll, just so that multi-roll, we can count how many cards he's going to get back later on. Normally when you go into an Engage, what you can do is you go into Hornet Bit, because that actually adds an additional spell. So it doesn't seem like Jessie opened up with the Engage. And he's going to go into his Kagari to get back the Hornet Bit. Now bear in mind that we do not have the OTK combo that comes from Summon Sork and Crystal Needle Fiber. Oh, he does have an Engage. But I guess it actually didn't really matter too much in the previous case. So he's going to use his Engage. Engage gets ashed. And he does have the follow-up counter of Call by the Grave. Now that turns off Ash Blossom for him as well. And that's something to keep in mind, that it's going to be very easy to forget, especially in a mirror match, when you cannot use your own Ash Blossom since Call by the Grave was activated. That's something that a lot of players keep on forgetting, and I just wouldn't recommend you guys forget this, because it will be a huge swing in tempo if you forget. So multi-roll now gets into 2, and he's going to be adding himself a Jamming Wave. I realized that one thing about the Brandish Maiden or the Sky Striker matchup is that most of the spells and traps in the back row don't like to be forced to be activated, which makes Trickstar a very annoying matchup when it comes to Light Stage stunning the back row, or just using Jamming Wave to just hit a random card in the back. It hurts actually a lot, because the timing is never perfect and it's just never ideal. So he's going to hit the back row. I'm going to chain Widow Anchor and just negate the Kagari. I was actually hoping to save it for later, but that just didn't happen. So in other words, I was forced to do so. And being forced into a situation like this isn't exactly very good, especially when I only have, I guess, just a bunch of monsters in hand left now. Now he has 3 spells engraved, and we're going to constantly be counting spells a lot, because the spells will affect the attack damage output from either side. Okay. So he's probably going to go into a Shizuku later on. He could either kill off my... he could technically kill off the... No, he's not killing it off. Okay, so if he actually attacked into the Shizuku, the Ray would actually summon out from the graveyard, and then I can actually try to do some sort of follow-up in the next turn. So he's going to use Widow Anchor. And this is actually pretty fun, because I actually have no counters towards what he's doing, and now he gets to push for about 3,000 worth of damage right now. 15 and 15. And when he gives me back my Shizuku is in the main monster zone, therefore I cannot activate any of my spell cards until I get rid of my own Shizuku. So he's played basically 4 spells, and this is why you shouldn't overcommit into playing so many spells in one go. It's fine. It's got a lot of stuff always gets off camera anyway. Okay, so right now he has 4 activations there, and he's gonna set 1, and when he goes to the end phase, he gets his Shizuku activation, and he also get yeah, okay, see, this is what I'm talking about here. So the Ogre came down and actually took out the multi-roll. Therefore, he was not able to add back any of his spells, but then he has 4 different, well, I guess he has 3 different spells in the graveyard. So because of the 3 different spells, he's not able to add like a lot of the priority cards. So he's down a Widow Anchor. He's also down the Engage. He doesn't have Jamming Wave, although he only runs 1 copy anyway. But that means 2 of the best cards are not searchable from Shizuku, which makes Shizuku a much weaker card. So he's gonna go with the Field Spell because the Field Spell lets him dig and excavate 3 additional cards. But yeah, Shizuku right now is not like a threat in terms of Jessie getting card advantage. In terms of what I'm doing right now, I'm kind of stuck because his Shizuku is definitely stronger than mine. And I only have 1 spell in the graveyard, which is my Widow Anchor. Now note that I did not get my search in the previous turn because I got Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, so I have to immediately just tag out right away. I don't even have a choice. Or else, if I did draw into an Engage, I can't activate it. And this gives him a lot more control, so because of the effect of Kagari, Kagari will allow me to add back the Widow Anchor. Just get your cards in there. Sometimes you actually have to count the graveyard, sometimes you don't. This time I didn't really have to care for it because I don't have 3. Now I drew into an Afterburner, so I'm actually going to pop off that Shizuku. Now he didn't go into a Ray, so in other words there was no repercussion when it comes to hitting that. Now I'm just going to hit him for 16 because Afterburner is probably my only spell, and I'm going to tag. Maybe I'm able to actually get my Ray this time, but you see that Jessie's side, what happened was he overcommitted and he wasn't exactly where. This is his first time playing the deck, so you know what, everyone, let's just cut some slack here because this is more of a learning experience. That's the only reason why this match is actually brought to you guys. So just be careful of overcommitting to 1 card. Sometimes you have to hold back, and if you actually can get a second Engage activated back into your hand, then do so. It's always worth it to get the flexibility of searching any useful text or any useful quick play spells in the back row to stun your opponent. So I actually was successfully able to get the Engage. And Jessie now has fallen a bit behind, but that depends. If his Area 0 works out, he might be able to get some cards back. He's going to activate Area 0, and I don't have Ghost Ogre, and he's going to chain his Hornet Bit, which is good. And it whiffed. So yeah, sometimes it happens. You're not gonna get the ability to send the card to the graveyard, and that's sometimes an issue. Now, Area 0 is actually really good with the actual monster of Ray because the second part of the effect does not need to happen. So the sending part doesn't actually need to happen, so you can actually chain Ray so that you can actually get the free excavation check. So he's going to go into Kagari. Kagari's obviously going to get Widow Anchor. He's just kind of forced into this at this point because it's just not ideal for him. Therefore, he can actually just tag out again and go into Shizuku. Shizuku does not have a lot of value right now because it still can't exactly search too much. He can't get his Hornet Bits, he can't get his Engage, Widow Anchor. Basically everything's kind of locked out. He can technically get an Afterburner and kind of follow up from there. Now hopefully there isn't too many misplays or illegal plays in this matchup, because we are fresh to the deck, and being fresh to the deck means that sometimes I'm going to be a little bit more forgiving in this particular match. So he's going to get his effect. I have no response to that. Now in both our builds, we are playing Foolish Burial Goods, because Foolish Burial Goods is, I think, is a more flexible card, because if you open a Foolish Burial Goods, you can actually get the Engage sooner, so you can use it to fetch Engage, or you can use it for the extra draw. The option is there, so it just adds a level of consistency that we like. He's gonna go with Shark Cannon. Shark Cannon is an amazing card in the mirror match. Some are even considering siding an extra Shark Cannon because it lets you play with your opponent's copies of Kagari. Now one thing that Shark Cannon does not allow you to do is, if you do summon the monster rather than banish it, you cannot attack, but the effects are still intact. And here's the funny thing, you can use it to steal monsters like Mechaba. If you use it to steal Mechaba, you're going to be able to negate a lot of spells, and that's actually very annoying. So I just top decked the best possible card. I have, I believe, 3 cards in the graveyard right now. I don't think, wait, hold on, I have a Widow Anchor and I have an Afterburner. So I'm going to go play my Engage. Well, that kind of sucked. So I got Impermanence, so that was definitely my misplay, because I played into an Impermanence, and I just mentioned Impermanence is a thing, you got to be very careful. But luckily I was a sack, so I got a second Engage, and if people have 2 Engages, you're just stuck with it. So you might have to play Droll Lock to kind of shut people out. So luckily I had a second Engage. I had one from the Shizuku and I top decked another copy, so I got a free burnout from the Impermanence. And Impermanence is kind of funny. Just remember that you can only target your opponent's monster, and now my center zone is actually locked out, so I'm only going to play in the non-negated zones. So I'm going to go into Afterburner, and here's another lesson here. Don't pop the field spell. Because I popped the field spell, I gave Jessie access to the Ray. And that is an absolute misplay, because Ray carries the quick effect of tributing herself to summon out a monster into the extra monster zone, which would be any of the extra deck Sky Striker monsters. And Ray being so slippery makes her very difficult to deal with. So if I try to attack into it, she's just going to tag. And Jessie does have a more filled up graveyard. So I am going to add back the Engage. Gotta play Engage once again, and of course now I am getting the additional draw from the effect. Now I know that the Ego Booster isn't exactly the most ideal card in the matchup, in fact, because most people feel like Call by the Grave does the same thing, because you can use it to protect yourself against hand traps. So in terms of like things you can cut, you can definitely try to cut an Ego Booster, but Ego Booster in the mirror can be useful when your opponent has more spells than you in comparison, because his monster will be stronger than yours. And while I'm thinking up of a play, I can talk about Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre was really beneficial in this previous case now, due to the fact that I was able to pop a 4-set multi-roll, but it's not exactly always the case. So I'm going to go into battle phase, I'm going to swing into the Ray. Jessie is considering to tag out. Now one of the reasons I'm featuring this match is because there's actually quite a bit to learn of what to do, what not to do. So he goes into Kagari, and he knows that I have a Widow Anchor. The point is, if you actually lose all 3 Kagaris, it's going to be extra painful because you're not going to be able to recover any cards out of the graveyard, and at that point you're slowly descending into your own defeat. So him for 21 and him for 15. Remember that the Kagari that you take from your opponent does not gain any attack from the spells in your graveyard because the effect is firstly negated, then you get taken. Now leaving a Kagari, I can just give him back his Kagari, or I can link it off. Now, remember that linking it off isn't exactly the best thing to do because only Shizuku will help you regain additional card advantage against your opponent. Now remember that Jessie did add that Shark Cannon earlier, and that Shark Cannon is going to give him the extra Kagaris. I am going to proceed to normal summon. Perhaps I actually should have done it early so I could have gotten a little bit more damage, probably 15 more, and I'm going to link into a link 3. Seems like my only choice right now is Topologic Trisbana. There's no point really going to the Unicorn. Trisbana has more stats. And let me tell you, a monster with 2,400 attack points is quite difficult to actually overrun due to the fact that you need at least 9 spells and traps in the 9 spells in the graveyard to actually run it over. So this one you'll need at least 10. And Trisbana is kind of fun because if you do have the token card, and I don't exactly have a large hand right now, so I can actually commit to the Trisbana. If I summon the token into the arrows, then I can, well, I can actually nuke his side of the field. A lot of people are going to try to make Trisbana to nuke your field, so make sure you have your Widow Anchors handy, and try not to commit when you don't exactly have a Trisbana. Or sorry, you don't have a Widow Anchor. Oh, one thing about going into a monster that isn't related to Sky Strikers, it's that when they die, Ray won't activate, and therefore you can't exactly gain card advantage. So we're gonna see a Shark Cannon activation on Jessie, and he is going to probably target my Kagari. Because one thing that didn't happen on Jessie's side was the resolution of a Kagari. So now he's going to take mine. Even though it does summon into the main monster zone, it's okay. Their effects will still activate. This gives him the opportunity to link into a Shizuku. But the reason why I went into Topologic Trisbana is because I tried to burn him for game. At least that was my goal. Now, usually by this time when you're running low on extra deck Sky Striker monster, you got to think about going into a Hercules base. You need to get the ability to recover your Kagaris. You gotta put 2 back and 1 Shizuku back because it is just necessary at this point.
Got him.
So with his current engaged search, we're gonna go with the Widow Anchor. That's not bad. He can actually turn off my effect as well. And perhaps he can actually go for game. If he has enough damage, he can just really push and then you go Trisbana, use the effect to proc Trisbana, banish 2 of my cards, I guess. No, he's gonna go for Foolish Burial Goods. So Foolish Burial Goods at this point is actually going to be just a free draw. Think of it as upstart. Each copy is just an additional upstart. So it almost feels like the deck has 4 upstarts. This is the goods engine. If Jessie draws a monster and he steals Trisbana, He can swing for 15, 15, and 25. And I believe that's 5,500. That would actually just take me out from the match. So things aren't over just yet. Oh, he's got to go into Upstart. And he drew into a useful card. So he does have the Hercules base. Things aren't exactly looking too good. Does he have a if he has a monster, it might be over for me. So one of the ways that this deck can push for damage is that you can normal summon out a regular, I guess, Ray, attack, and then in the battle phase, you tag her out into Kagari and get an additional swing, so you can reach for about 3,000 worth of damage. If you have Darkest Diablos in hand, you can even summon that out, and that'll be a 6k reach. See, this is the point of Ego Booster. Ego boostering your own dude. Now my monster cannot be destroyed by battle. He couldn't steal my monster with Widow Anchor, and everything is still live on my side, which kind of threw a wrench in Jessie's plan to actually one-shot me. And this game is actually going to be super grindy. Like, slowly chip each other to death. He has the Hercules base, but he has no means of shuffling any of his cards back into the deck because he can't send that card to the graveyard. It needs to be sent to the graveyard by a card effect, so you can't just equip it onto a guy and then link it up. It doesn't work that way. I'm not even sure if he has any targets available in his graveyard. Graveyard control is super important, but Maestro's Bane is actually quite weak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11. I can't even count how many there are. But Maestro's Bane is definitely really weak, and I think he's about 100 stronger. So end phase, he's gonna add an Afterburner. And I think I completely threw a wrench in his plans, because I think he was planning to OTK me. I think he has a Ray in hand. Now, if I get a Widow Anchor, I think I can take this game. So that was the one time that Eagle Booster definitely saved me, but it seems like I top decked an Infinite Impermanence.
Punching to the center is a problem for me now. Because Church Bane is going to vanish. Yeah.
So my set card right there is actually a Hornet Bit. The problem with going into a Hornet Bit is that if I want to link right now, the Trasbana is actually hindering what I want to do. I'm actually about to lose a card thanks to it, so I'm trying to work around my own Trasbana, which is why I don't think Trasbana is the most ideal card in this matchup. So as you can see in the previous deck profile, I already swapped out the Trasbana for a Decode Talker. Now I'm gonna link into a Kagari. Now I know that Kagari is gonna get banished because it's going to trigger Trasbana's effect, but Kagari will also activate, and this is gonna give me a chance to take a Widow Anchor. Oh, one thing I really wanted to note is that Call by the Grave is super useful in the mirror match, and I would recommend keeping it in whether you're going first or second, because you can use it to negate Kagari. It's a form of a negation because there's going to be a copy of the Kagari in the graveyard eventually. Gotta go with that Engage. Engage is going to probably help me fetch a Widow Anchor, and once I get that Widow Anchor, I think it is over. Do I not have a Widow Anchor? Oh, it's seems like I don't have a Widow Anchor. So I believe in my current build in this video, I am only running 2 Widow Anchors, and I think both of them are in the graveyard. That was a setback. That's a huge setback for me. I basically threw away game. Gotta check his graveyard. Gotta do a bit of accounting for what Shizuku can do to me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? I think 10 and 11. So now I'm gonna activate Shark Cannon. The Shark Cannon doesn't allow me to attack, so I have to be extra careful. So I'm gonna add a Brandish Maiden Ray onto the field with a Link 3 and a 1 monster that gives me a Link 4. Now the Link 4 actually matters, and it's actually quite difficult to go into a Link 4 that requires 3 monsters, like Borreload. Borreload is not an easy monster to actually get into because it's going to cost you 4 monsters. So I'm going to go into Topologic Bomber Dragon because I want the extra reach, I want to burn him, I want to punch. Now if I do swing into it, my monster is right now a little bit stronger, so I'm going to attack. Apparently he's only taking 400 damage from this attack. So yeah, he's got about 11, and I'm going to burn him for 15. He's going to attempt to activate Gamma. I think because my burning happens after damage calculation, the monster has not been sent to the graveyard, therefore he still has a monster. He cannot activate the Gamma because he would actually technically control the monster. But you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, because this is after damage calc, this is not the end. We can definitely look it up on the wiki. So we're just debating whether or not we should run Gamma in this situation. So Topologic Bomber Dragon does not need to destroy the monster to burn. The moment he attacks, he burns that monster. So because of the timing, Gamma was not able to activate. And then the effect of Ray, due to the fact that the monster was destroyed by battle, Ray gets to be special summoned out onto the field. At least that's an option. But seems like Jessie, because he ran out of resources early on in the extra deck, he perhaps wants to save a couple of cards just so that he can actually activate the rest of his hand. It seems like that's what he's contemplating right now. Yeah, he'd say he'd rather use his Afterburner. And he popped my Topologic Bomber Dragon. And he gets to pop my set card. And because of the fact that he does not control a monster, I could not have used Impermanence to kind of stun it, or there was no chance for it. He's going to proceed to set a card because he's down to 900, and at the 900 you're basically in desperation mode, and in desperation mode any point of life you save is a point to survival. I am going to go into Area 0, the field spell, set a card, activate, target my own card, reveal, Cosmic Cyclone, reveal, Darkest Diablos, reveal, and even I whiffed it. So both of us, you know, fair game, both of us whiffed once. So there was a lot of plays in here that weren't exactly the most ideal. Yeah, so that was just me reading to confirm that the card does not send unless it actually excavates the card correctly and adds it to hand. So both of us, you know, one set apiece. So Foolish Burial Goods, once again, giving him the additional draw. Like, Foolish Burial Goods, over the first 2 turns, it's just amazing. And even in the late game, it's actually still not too bad, offering you a free draw. Okay. I don't know what he has set. So that's the basic breakdown of this current match. He's down to 900. It's gonna be a one-way swing. If there was Hayate, then there would be a direct attack, and that would just end it. Because Sky Strikers have a very big difficulty when it comes to non-targetable monster and the reach that you need. But that's why there's such an effective control deck. I'm gonna see Rhoda. The thing is, right now he has a set card. He can't activate any of his Sky Striker cards. Well, there are 2 that you can activate. The Field Spell and Multi-Roll. Jesse's taking his time to try to consider a play. Maybe he's trying to game me. Oh no, he flips over his Ash Blossom Joy Spring. He goes into a Maiden Ray. Is he going to a lane 2? Is he going to block Rose? Oh, underclock take here. That's not good. Yeah, he ran out of extra deck resources, and that's why it sucks. Just gonna attack into the face down. Takes the hit of 800. Really close to death there. That was a huge risk. Oh, I drew a pretty good card there. So I'm gonna play the Foolish Burial Goods so that I can ditch myself a copy of Metal Foes Fusion. Why? No. Yeah, there it is. There's Metal Foes Fusion. And basically just put it back into the deck later. Like right now. So now I get to draw 1. And that's why it's just nice to have that option. So I drew into a multi-roll. At this point, I am actually able to finish him off. Because I can just go into the multi-roll, send the Area 0, and Area 0 will summon out Ray, and then I can just punch over Underclock Taker, and that will be game. But I'm gonna do some silliness first by sending my Ghost Ogre to the graveyard through the excavation effect of Area 0. And Ray. And all Ray's got to do is attack, but at this point everything here is just for show. Activate the Hercules base so that I can actually recover, and then attack, and that is the end of that game. So hopefully we learn some things to do and things to not do in this matchup. So we move on to the second game, and just to remind you guys, of course this is a practice match, this is an early stages of the game, so it's more of a lesson to be learned more than anything. Usually I would just kind of tell you what's going on, but you know what, having a full view example is not too bad at all. It's a really good teaching tool. So Jessie opens up with the Foolish Burial Goods. There's two directions you can technically go with this. You can go ditch the Engage straight into the graveyard, especially if you already have access to Hornet Bit or you have access to Ray. That usually works out pretty well. In his case, he threw in the Metal Force Fusion, which gives him an extra draw. Right now, he did fill his entire graveyard with 3 spells, which is actually a good thing, but this might not be the most ideal direction, and Jessie's just doing this for an example for us, where he's going to go for the Ray, but then he realizes there's a better potential to actually get multiple accesses, or multiple activations of the Engage if you actually threw Engage in there instead of the extra draw. So a raw +1 might not be as good as adding Engage, which can actually help you get a really strong board. Now he has a Widow Anchor in hand as well, I believe. So he did Rhoda into the Ray, so he can go into Kagari. Kagari doesn't actually have anything to add back right now because he can't really burn the Widow Anchor, and he's pretty much safe from hand traps as he already has a copy of the Call by the Grave in hand. Now one thing to note is that you should never really try to go into other kinds of Link monsters unless it's like super protected. Otherwise, it's not worth it. You need the card advantage. Your main playstyle of this deck is card advantage, and the moment you actually take it away, it just becomes that much more frustrating when you lose your board, because Raid's not going to help you recover, you don't have Hornet Bits, you're just left with an empty field because the deck doesn't run exactly a lot of monsters. So he's going to go into Shizuku. So yeah, in this case, he should have went into the Engage with the Foolish Burial Goods, and he's going to get countered by an Infinite Impermanence so that Shizuku now doesn't get the search. So this actually is a very far setback. So definitely the play in this particular case, Foolish Burial Goods should not have tossed the Metal Force Fusion. So I'm going to start off with a Foolish Burial, and I'm going to toss the Ray into the graveyard. No, maybe Ray, maybe Darkest Diablos. Having Darkest Diablos in there is very good. I'm actually considering bumping up Darkest Diablos to 2 due to the fact that this deck has very low damage output. One of the strongest damage output you can do in this particular deck is that you can normal summon out the Ray, go into battle phase, swing with it, use her effect, tag into Kagari, get an additional swing, but on top of that, if you have Darkest Diablos already available, you can summon out Darkest Diablos for another 3k worth of damage. Then you rip 1 card out of your opponent's hand with Darkest Diablos, emptying out the main monster zone, getting your effects off once again. So I was actually forced into using my Call by the Grave on the Ash Blossom Joyous Spring, although I was trying to save it for the Ray when Ray was going to activate. But now it's going to get countered, so this was not the most ideal play for me, but this was just a fallback. Just remember, you must have a lot of fallback plays available or else you're just not going to be ready. And here I'm going to demonstrate... No, not demonstrating anything. Never mind, I thought I had Ray in hand. So if you had Ray in hand, you could actually get additional cards out of this without, well, getting cards sent to the grave. Okay, there's the Ray. Then there's the Afterburner and a Scapegoat. I'll talk about Scapegoat in a bit, because that card is actually a bit of a hit or miss to me. During this playtest session, it has come to my attention that if you have Ray in the graveyard, you're not sure if you actually want to use Scapegoat. And Scapegoat, yeah, it is a very good end phase card, but putting monsters on the board and leaving that many tokens on the field, it's a bit struggling when it comes to emptying them out and not being able to actually use your spells and traps to clear the board first to make it safe. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Ray. Ray is going to Link Summon. No, I don't think I'm Link Summoning. I might be Tributing. Yes, this is a Tribute. Because if you Tribute her, you still get the Link monster out onto the field. I'm probably going to go straight to Shizuku, just like Jessie, because I don't have anything to add back in hand. And resources is something you have to be very careful. And yeah, so we get a play for play, counter to counter with the... Call by the Grave. He's taking out Darkest Diablos, because Darkest Diablos is a very difficult monster to answer. Even though he sits in the main monster zone, most of the main deck can't target it. The out to Darkest Diablos naturally in the deck would be a Jamming Wave. You can use Jamming Waves to pop your own spells and traps, and then you can destroy Darkest Diablos, because Darkest Diablos cannot be targeted, nor can it be tributed, so even a Kaiju won't save you at that point.
Gotta kill my own now.
So we're gonna see a Widow Anchor, and he's gonna take it, and he's just gonna give it back. That way, I don't get the effect. And now I actually have to get rid of my own Shizuku, because Shizuku being in the main monster zone is not helping my current situation. So this is kind of the point where you want to make your opponent burn more resources, and that's kind of part of the idea in the grind game. You need to force your opponent to burn cards. Now this is the I guess the aftermath of not being able to search, or forgetting to search out the engage. Now he has to play a harder grind game because he doesn't have constant flow of searches and draws out of the deck. So he is going to tag into Kagari. It's super safe for him. So he gets his effect. Remember that he doesn't have his engage, so he always has access to engage through the other card of Shizuku during the end phase. So that kind of is a bit of a fallback, a little bit of a just a little bit of a backup plan. In the background, it is getting darker and darker because this actually took place, well, near the afternoon, and we are using a bit of sunlight in this live feed. So possible options is to push for damage, but when you push for damage, he's got his Widow Anchor back, he has Hornet Bits, he can technically go into a Link 3, but never commit to anything unless you can kill your opponent, because it's, once you lose that monster, it's a hard recovery. Hopefully you guys are learning a thing or two about this matchup. So he's not going to go for the swing because he has no way of answering the Ray. Both of us have Ray and Grave, and we just really don't like it that the other guy can actually get the Ray back, because Ray is just such a free resource.
Oh, not that.
And if your opponent does like hold another monster, I guess like say the Link monster, remember that these Link monsters cannot link into themselves. They need a different attribute to link into, and that's why when the wind one comes out, it's gonna be a lot more flexible. Right now we only have two choices. If you get the water one, you can't go into another water. So if at any point where I get Reapered out my fire, then I need Shizuku to actually be destroyed or removed from the field. So I'm gonna activate Afterburner, target off the... Oh, never mind. Here's the thing. You can't activate while there's a main monster, and it's pretty easy to forget, especially when you only control one of the Link monsters. So yes, Jessie pointed that out, and that is very much correct. So that's something to be aware of, so that your opponent doesn't activate like Widow Anchors to steal your monsters. So yeah, I'm forced to tag out while I am not ready. I wanted to retrieve my Widow Anchor, or Afterburner, but this is not going to be the case. So I'm going to go into Kagari, and Kagari is a sitting duck. And my Eagle Booster is in the graveyard. Eagle Booster is pretty useful for the whole negation, or unaffected protection. And usually when someone tries to hand trap you using like an effect failure or impermanence, Eagle Booster, it will be that one situational card that will help you get your effects to go through. It's a trade 1-for-1, but I think it's actually okay sometimes. Some people are choosing not to run it because in some cases it's very much similar to using Call by the Grave. And to be honest, it is used in a very similar manner. And here's the point where I get Widow Anchor and he's taking it. The moment he takes it, I don't get access to Shizuku, and that hurts. But now I'm forced to use my Afterburner, or else I'm not going to be in a good situation. Okay, I do have 3 spells in Grave, so Afterburner will pop a Spawn Trap. And one big thing about the Sky Strikers, in terms of their back row, they hate being forced. I set a card, and I'm going to use my Area 0. Oh, got engaged. That's pretty good. Oh, 2 engages. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm getting 1 engaged regardless, and I get to send my Ghost Ogre into the graveyard. That clears off my main monster zone, and it's going to be Area 0 and the multi-roll. That's going to be the utility card to remove monsters in the main monster zone. Of course, that's not their only purpose. So, gonna go with an Afterburner because I'm trying to clear some back row before I go into the engage. And if he has Ash Blossom Joy Spring, that's gonna really hurt now. Oh, so we hit the Hornet Bits. Remember that the second effect of the spells, especially for Afterburner and Jamming Waves, the ones that manipulate the spells and monsters, those ones, the second effect does not target, so there is no such thing as chaining. So if you activate Afterburner and someone it goes through, you can destroy the other back row and say they have Scapegoat. They cannot chain that Scapegoat. So I'm gonna get a draw. I get myself a Hornet Bit because I need to get into a monster. I need to get that fetch. I want to pop one of his monsters. He gets a Ray back. So remember that Ray summons out of the graveyard the moment a Link Sky Striker monster is destroyed or removed from the field by your opponent's card effect. So I'm gonna go into Hornet Bits. Get my token. Graveyard check. It's alright. I guess while I'm considering my play, there's one thing that I learned over playing this deck at locals. I cut out Phoenix, and that was a mistake. You need a Link to an Underclock Taker or Phoenix, because sometimes you're just stuck with a bunch of monsters. You need to push for damage. I recommend Underclock Taker just because you can actually make additional links. You can actually push for additional damage. But yeah, because the reach of this deck is very low without the Chambara and Summon Sorceress combo, it just hurts a lot. So I'm going to go with a swing into my own Kagari. If I get Widowed Anchor, it's going to be a crash. It'll be 15-15 because that Kagari is still negated. Now there is a way to get a replay out of this, but that would require me to burn a card in my hand, and I do not want to burn a Widow Anchor. Widow Anchors are super important in this grind game. And these games, actually, pay attention, like this, we're already like about 40-50 minutes in, and let me tell you, these grind games are actually going to take a while. So I'm gonna let the crash happen. I get my Ray back, and it's actually not too bad to sit on a Ray. But yeah, these games are going to be slow chipping, so if you guys have ways to get extra reach, that would be ideal. Some people are deciding in like spell cancel so that the other guy can't play any spells, and the moment they can't put any spells on the field, it really hurts, and you can't fill up the graveyard so that even your Kagari or Shizuku won't be able to run it over. That is just an option. Anti-spell hurts as well. Some people are considering using Magical Reflector because it turns off all the quick play spells. And Sky Strikers can be splashed into so many decks. You can play it in Dinos, you can play it in Trickstars. So either way, there is going to be some variant of this. And even if you only have one copy of Engage, it's still very good as long as you can reuse that same copy over and over again. But that also makes it so that their extra deck is extra tight. Also, he's going to go with a multi-roll. He also has the Engage in hand. This is going to be a rough time. Since I only have one back row, the only thing I have access to is that Widow Anchor. I can steal a monster, and that's about as far as I can go. So that's one copy activated for the multi-roll. So multi-roll is going to retrieve a lot of cards, and this time if I don't have a Ghost Ogre or a Cosmic Cyclone to take that out, it is going to punish me in the long run, because in terms of card advantage, I guess Jessie would be swimming in card advantage and I'd be in the drought. He might even go for a Hercules base. No, he's gonna go with Jamming Waves, because Jamming Waves can actually kill off my monster, forcing me to tag. It's actually really good timing for him. Like I said, like previously, you just don't want to get forced into activating your back row, and you're forced into activating your back row. I just am gonna lose Ray regardless, because if he activates the Jamming Wave, if I tag out, my Ray will still die, or whatever monster I put out will still die. So, luckily, Jamming Wave isn't exactly a quick effect. I might actually be forced to activate my Widow Anchor right now, just to take his monster, so that I don't have a set spell and trap, so that he can't get the second effect of the Jamming Wave. Sometimes you might be forced into doing something like this, so don't wait too long. I know, again, I can't activate that, I can't activate my, Widow Anchor, so I'm forced to tag first. So on the resolution of his search, I'm tagging into a Kagari, and I'm using Kagari's effect to retrieve a card. And unfortunate for me, I don't exactly have really good targets in there. Oh, never mind, hold on, I've misspoken. There is an engage in there. Oh, never mind, even more. Not gonna happen, gotta get Widow Anchored. Now I don't really even, now I really don't want to activate my Widow Anchor, because if he forces the Widow Anchor now, that's fine. But, yeah, this is a bit of damage coming from Jessie now. Because if I activate my Widow Anchor, I'm getting nothing out of this, and he can still tag into a Shizuku using my copy of Kagari. So getting that Jamming Wave is actually not too bad in the mirror match. So he's going to use Multi-Roll's effect, target his set card, and his Metamorphosis Fusion. So in other words, it's just a free draw, and now every time he activates a spell card, I have no response. He can just kill off my spells. Having the no response part with the Afterburners and the Jamming Wave is probably one of the most ideal things you can do, because your opponent cannot chain cards, they just get destroyed. And that is painful. But bear in mind, it's actually quite easy to forget that you have multi-roll activated. So multi-roll isn't just for Sky Striker spells, it's for all spells. Gets his draw. Oh my god, he also has a Shark Cannon now. Yeah, we're just really not hitting each other very much.
How much is this?
So we're gonna see them battling now. We're gonna take a, I think a 15, just from my Kagari, and then he also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, he has 6. So that's a 21, putting me at 44. And then his end phase. Oh my god. So multi-roll has to set different names, so you can't just get a bunch of Widow Anchors and put it back in the back row. And speaking of multi-roll, consider a side card of Hey Trunade. If you think about the back row that's available to a Sky Striker player, there's not exactly a lot of cards that linger. And if they retrieve stuff with multi-roll, if you Hey Trunade that, they all get banished at once. Which makes Hey Trunade a pretty decent card to consider for your side deck if you're going to be playing against Sky Strikers. Because, first of all, if you take away the Widow Anchor, that's no threat anymore. If you take away the Hornet Bit, they're forced to activate the Hornet Bit, which would shut off everything, or else they just won't have it. Or they might just keep it back in their hand. But in most cases, even like Call by the Graves that's set, even if you hit stuff like Infinite Impermanence, everything requires to be reacted to something, and therefore Hey Trunade removing them off the board gives you a much safer turn, putting tempo back in your favor. And if you guys are still with us at this time, congratulations. Hopefully you guys are learning a lot about this matchup. And whether you're playing this deck or playing against this deck, hopefully you guys have a better time grinding out this matchup. And I'll remind you guys, this is definitely a bit of a grind game. So I took this deck to locals. I finished first place with it because I guess it's a really strong deck by just using card advantage. But let me tell you, if your opponent plays a lot of big beat sticks, and if they get out Ultimate Falcon because you accidentally popped a Waking the Dragon, you better have a natural out. And my current natural out against Waking the Dragon is, I guess it's either Ash Blossom before it happens, or if it's after the fact, then I have Utopia the Lightning in there. And actually putting out Utopia the Lightning is not too bad because when he attacks, it's pretty safe. It's only the problem of getting Widow Anchored, and my answer to the Widow Anchor is the use of the Ego Booster. But trust me, if you're able to actually get out with the Ultimate Falcon and you just play with your spells and traps as a Sky Striker player, it is marvelous. It is so hard to kill it, and then anytime they actually try to do something, it's going to fail. It doesn't look like I'm in a good situation now with the multi-roll setting that many cards and me not having a forced into sending my own card into the graveyard through the area 0. Hopefully I can excavate a decent card.
Yes.
Oh man. Jessie Pat. Okay, he lets it go through. Jamming Wave. Alright. Jamming Wave will let me clear off a couple of things. So I have Afterburner. I have a lot of choices here. I know some people are considering not running Jamming Wave, and you know what? There's also the choice of MST. Although MST is just a generic card that's pretty decent in these kinds of matchups because there's no real problem when it comes to just answering back rows 1 for 1. Like, MST could be useful, even Cosmic Cyclone. The thing about MST or Jamming Wave is that you can hit your own cards, particularly the Area 0, to dig out a Ray. So in terms of your Ray access, you have the 3 copies of Ray, you have, well, I guess your Link access, sorry. You have 3 copies of Ray, 3 tokens, 3 engages, and you have the 2 field spells. But if you have access to popping the field spell, then you have Ray already. So yeah, I have to send my Kagari to the graveyard because I can't activate anything. So I'm going to activate Jamming Wave to target one of his set cards. If that's an impermanence, then I would have made a huge mistake, but I have no choice. I have no space to activate anything. And that's why placement also really matters. So I hit a Widow Anchor and I get to pop his monster. I did not. I chose not to pop the monster because I want to steal his monster and then go for my own links. So sometimes you don't use both effects even though you can, and that was one of the situations right there. Because if I actually took out his monster too, then I actually have no monster access, and this is something specific for the mirror match. So yeah, I'm gonna link off his monster now. I should have a copy of Shizuku left. I can't go into Kagari. I have to go into Shizuku. Again, that was the limitation of only having so many attributes. Attack 15. And he just chooses to take 15. He knows he has Shark Cannon. He knows I have Kagari in the graveyard. And this is the constant exchanges of just using your opponent's cards in this mirror match. It's very similar to using Lullaby of Obedience. And no, don't use Lullaby of Obedience in this mirror match. It's very bad because you're setting up your opponent for success. So end phase, I actually get my Surge, and I'm going to get Hercules base, mainly because I'm already kind of burnt out in my extra deck. And common misplays with Hercules base, I have actually done this at locals. Rather than activating the card sometimes, I just set and send it because I'm scared of losing my monster along the way. And remember, Hercules base needs to be sent by a card effect to get the retrieval. So he's going to go with the Afterburner, and he's going to target my Shizuku. Afterburner can only target face-up monsters. Remember that. So Afterburner's face-up monsters, and then the spell can be any spells, face-up spells and traps. So I'm gonna change Scapegoat to this because this was that situation where I'm actually forced into using the Scapegoat, but this gives Jessie a second opportunity to destroy another card on my field. And because I did use Scapegoat, and this is why it's a little iffy, if he kills off my field spell, I don't get a copy of Ray out of my deck anymore. Mainly because Scapegoat's restriction. And Scapegoat's restriction is pretty hard. And now he's popping that, and there is going to be no repercussion coming from that. Nothing will get triggered because they can't trigger. Putting out 4 goats is not too bad because I get some quick access to links if he doesn't clear everything. But Jessie is going to demonstrate here how to take care of all these goats. And one of the biggest problems is Hercules base. Oh, fun fact. I think I just mentioned this in the background here. If you make a Borreload Dragon and then you equip a Hercules base, you can make Borreload steal 2 monsters. It's just a little funny fact.
See, this is the reason why you shouldn't have Scapegoat.
And that would actually be very devastating. Or, the other effect of Hercules base is that you can draw cards for every monster you destroy by battle, and you can attack twice. But the only kind of restriction is that you cannot attack directly. And I believe you can actually equip this to your opponent's monsters to actually stop them from attacking.
Damn, you're cycling too. And you get 2 draws.
It doesn't say which target you need to put it on. Yeah, activate this card if you control no monsters in your main monster zone. The equipped monster cannot attack directly. Yeah, so I think you can put this on your opponent's monster as well. And it just says the equipped monster cannot attack directly. So you can put it on your opponent's card as well if you really feel like you need that protection. But I don't recommend it because your opponent's probably going to send it to the graveyard. And you won't get your Hercules base effect because it was sent there by mechanic. If there was a Link monster that does piercing damage, that would be ideal. And I would shove a copy in if people go Scapegoat to protect their life, but then Hercules base is just going to wreck their face. But I don't know of any piercing Link monsters at the moment. So we're going to see a Shark Cannon. I think the obvious choice is going to take my Kagari. Or you can take my Ray, but Ray can't attack, so it's probably going to be Kagari that gets tagged out into something else. And that's the, the best thing about having proxies with the printed effect on there is that you're not likely to make a mistake unless Konami decides to change up the translation like what they did with Altergeist. Oh. So he's gonna go with the Afterburner. Afterburner's gonna burn one out. But he needs to have no cards in the main monster zone to activate the Afterburner. So it's likely he's gonna tag into Shizuku. Oh, so this is one of those misactivations because he technically can't activate the Afterburner. So even if he tagged out here, I wonder if he's gonna fix that up.
Got it.
So it's very easy to forget. This is his first time playing. I'm just gonna let it slide for now because he can still tag out. It doesn't make a bit of difference for this part. Yeah, so it's just done in the wrong order.
Not cool.
But that is something to be aware of. So yeah, so he would have just done this, and then he would have gone into the burner anyway, so that's just going to be like whatever. So he's going to get a draw from this, and he's going to get another swing. So that's 2 draws. And then he can actually use the multi-roll to send it to the grave to refix up his extra deck. Now, I know some of you guys down in the comments are going to be like, oh, he couldn't activate Afterburner, but if you just reverse the situation, does it actually matter as much now? Because there was no response regardless, and again, it's something that's very forgetful. And it's partially my fault because I just led him into just activating it. But I was like, oh, you could just activate it, and then which one are you going to take out? So he just straight up went for the play because probably he's a bit tired. And it's a bit overwhelming needing to read like 90% of the deck now. And his first time playing. You know what? He's still doing pretty good. Grinding this match out.
Alright, you know, I'm not that behind. Just 4 cards.
And he did activate a ton of cards, so he is going to use his multi-roll to reset a bunch of cards. So this is actually the point where, while top decking, I only have a Hercules base. I should just be entering scoop phase because in the essence of saving time, I think that would be the right thing to do. Especially with the new time change, grinding out this match is not going to be ideal. So I bet every skilled player is going to have a really strong way or very fast knowledge of how to play this deck, or else you're going to go into time every game. So I try to pop his card and he goes into activating the Ego Booster. This is the point where, you know what, there's no way I can come back. And this is a bit of a misplay on my part. I can't pop that Shark Cannon because I was under the wrong influence here of the then conjunction. No, the card technically doesn't get popped, so he still technically has a Shark Cannon, but it won't matter very much because it's scoop phase right now. Start wasting time here. It's a scoop phase. So one ruling here that was wrong. Why am I showing all the wrong rulings in this particular match? It's because this is a learning experience. This is a matchup breakdown, things that we need to be aware of so that we don't get screwed over. So you know what, there's only one game apiece because or else this would have gone into an hour 30. It would be a feature length match, and that is not what I'm aiming for. First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to RNG Legacy's Jessie. Special thanks to you for going through this practice match with me. I invited him as a guest and he has performed very well. And take it easy on the misplay. Remember, this is a learning feature. It is mainly there for us as a teaching tool. So huge shout out to you. So in the first game, I guess after getting 3 Kagaris negated, you will be really behind because you would not have access to engage as much. So in terms of the long grind game, Jessie fell way behind. In the second game, I definitely lost control early on and was unable to actually resolve my cards properly. I couldn't maintain card advantage, I couldn't keep up with his tempo, and I died. But the grind game was very, very long, and as you can see, each of these games took about 30 minutes, so something to be aware of. Don't play into time as much. It's not very ideal. Big beat sticks are hard to clear, so rather than stealing your opponent's big beat sticks, you should just clear them. If you guys enjoyed this match breakdown, I know there are misplays in there. I know why am I showcasing all these misplays is so that we can learn from them and hopefully you guys can catch them in the future day. If you guys enjoyed this, hit me up with a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV with actual feature matches, don't forget to subscribe to MST.TV and hold on to your MST.TV because you know it might come back. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.